The laughter wasn't loud. That made it worse. It came in quiet waves, scattered across crystal glasses and designer gowns. Whispers disguised as amusement. Glances laced with cruelty. The kind of mockery so familiar to Naomi Ellis. She could smell it before she even stepped into the ballroom. But this time, she didn't flinch. She stood at the top of the grand staircase of the Kessler estate, draped in a deep emerald gown that kissed the floor like silk dipped in defiance. Her posture was perfect. Chin high, back straight. Not arrogance, memory. Because Naomi hadn't always been a cleaner. And this wasn't the first ballroom her feet had touched. It was just the first time they didn't expect her to belong. "Wait, is that her?" someone whispered. A hush rolled through the golden-lit room as she descended, one slow step at a time. Marble under heel, silence under pressure. Her presence carved a path through people who had never seen her, even when she passed them every day with a vacuum in hand. Logan Kessler stood across the room, champagne glass halfway to his lips, eyebrows raised in theatrical disbelief. "Well," he said, turning toward the crowd. "Looks like she took the invitation seriously." The room chuckled. Naomi heard it all. The disbelief, the judgment, the invisible line between her and them, drawn not just by money, but by history, skin, and silence. Just 3 days ago, Logan had handed her a gold-trimmed envelope while she cleaned the foyer. "Annual gala," he'd said, flashing that smug Kessler smile. "Formal attire. I'm sure you have something buried in the back of your closet." The girls by his side had laughed like it was rehearsed. So Naomi hadn't said a word. She had just accepted it, and walked away. Now, here she was. And suddenly, no one was laughing. She reached the floor of the ballroom like a queen returning from exile. Eyes followed her, but no one dared speak. No one. Except Evelyn Stroud. "Naomi," she said, stepping forward in diamonds and discomfort. "That's quite a dress. I didn't know they made rentals that elegant." Naomi smiled. Not forced, not sweet, just sharp. "It's not rented," she replied. "It belonged to my mother." There was a pause, the kind that lands heavy. "Oh?" Evelyn blinked. "Was she in service too?" Naomi tilted her head gently. "Number." She wore it to this same gala, years ago, when she was still married to Julian Kessler. The silence shattered like glass underfoot. Logan's smile twitched. "What are you talking about?" Naomi didn't even look at him. "You heard me." The room shifted. People leaned closer, uncertain if this was theater or confession. "My mother's name was Elise Morrison. She played piano in this very hall. She was your father's wife before the Kessler family decided her skin didn't match the curtains." Logan stepped forward, voice tight. "That's a lie." Naomi turned to face him, finally, calm, controlled. "I was born in this house, but raised outside its walls. You knew about me. You just didn't think I'd walk back in through the front door." He laughed. A forced, choking sound. Even if any of that were true, why now? Naomi glanced around the room. At the cameras. At the people who mocked her. At the chandelier that once reflected her mother's tears. "Because tonight, you wanted to humiliate me," she said softly. "But I came here. To bury you." And for the first time in years, Logan Kessler felt something he didn't recognize. Fear. Logan didn't move. Not because he didn't want to, but because his body suddenly didn't trust him. The name Elise Morrison hadn't been spoken in that house for over 2 decades. She had been erased from photos, stories, memories, like a stain that embarrassed the Kesslers too much to scrub. So they buried it instead. And now, her daughter stood in their ballroom, wearing her dress, speaking her name, unafraid. "You're confused," Logan said, forcing a grin. "Maybe your mother lied to you. People say a lot of things when—" Naomi raised her hand gently, cutting through his noise like a scalpel. "I'm not here for debate, Logan. I'm here to return what you thought was lost." She reached into her purse and pulled out a small velvet box. Simple, elegant, royal blue. She opened it slowly, revealing a ring with a large blue sapphire and the unmistakable Kessler crest engraved in gold. Gasps bloomed across the room like sudden wind through fire. That's the legacy ring," whispered Evelyn, clenching her champagne flute. "Julian wore it everywhere. No one's seen it since his death." Naomi lifted the ring into the light. "He gave this to my mother when they married," she said calmly. "She gave it to me before she passed." Logan's voice cracked. "That proves nothing. It could be stolen, forged." Naomi turned to him, eyes narrowing just enough to be dangerous. "You'd know a lot about forgery, wouldn't you?" The crowd shifted again, some inching closer, others backing away, unsure where the explosion would land. Helena Kessler, standing just feet away from her husband, looked like she'd just swallowed glass. "Logan, you said your father died with no will, no other children. What is she talking about?" Logan ignored her. "I knew this would happen," he snapped. "The moment you let people like her in," Naomi's voice struck like lightning. "People like me?" The words hung in the air, charged and undeniable. "You mean the ones who cook your food, iron your suits, clean your marble until they see their own tired faces in the floor? The ones you can mock in public because you assume they'll never speak back?" Her eyes never left his. "I watched you for 2 years. You didn't even remember my face when you handed me that invitation. But I remembered yours. I remembered everything." Helena's voice wavered. "Is it true? Were you married before me?" Naomi answered for him. "Yes, my mother was his wife. Quiet, elegant, gifted, and black. That was her crime." A long pause. Then Logan's voice dropped low, darker now, defensive. "Even if she was married to him, that doesn't make you anything." Naomi stepped forward. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. "You're right, it doesn't make me anything. But this does." She gestured toward the ballroom entrance. The double doors opened, and in walked 3 people. The first, Diana Fox, the most feared investigative reporter in the state, holding a folder thick with documents. The second, Isaiah Chen, a calm, precise attorney specializing in contested estates. And the third, Dr. Malcolm Reed, the Kessler family physician, pale as ash, but walking with purpose. Logan's face dropped color. "What is this? You planned this? You ambushed me?" Naomi finally smiled. "No, Logan. I prepared." And from that moment forward, nothing in the Kessler legacy would ever be clean again. The room felt smaller now, as if Naomi's words had shrunk the walls, tightened the ceiling, and pulled the chandelier an inch lower. Logan's confident air was gone, replaced by something that looked too much like panic to be hidden. Diana Fox stepped forward first, heels clicking like gunshots against the marble. "I have here a sworn statement from Julian Kessler's notary," she announced, holding up a sealed folder. "This document confirms that a revised will was signed 10 days before his death, and that Naomi Ellis was listed as a direct heir." The crowd gasped. The Kessler name had built empires. Now it trembled under one signature. Logan's voice cracked. "That will was destroyed. It was never filed." Isaiah Chen remained silent as he connected a small projector to the ballroom's media system. The screen lit up behind Naomi, revealing a high-resolution scan of the will. Clear signature. Official seal. No doubt. Helena took a shaky breath. "You told me he died without one. That everything defaulted to you." Logan didn't answer. He was staring at the signature like it might erase itself if he glared hard enough. Dr. Malcolm Reed took his place beside Diana. "I treated Julian during his last months. At first, his symptoms pointed to age-related decline. Fatigue, tremors, confusion. But after seeing the recent toxicology report..." He pulled out another envelope and handed it to Diana, who opened it without ceremony. "Julian Kessler was poisoned," she said bluntly. "Over a period of several months. The levels of arsenic in his system were fatal." Someone in the crowd let out a choked sound. A woman in a green dress dropped her champagne flute. Shards scattered. Naomi didn't move. Her face remained still, but her fingers tightened around the ring box in her hand. "I always knew he didn't just fade," she said quietly. "My mother said his last days weren't natural. She begged people to look deeper. No one did." Isaiah stepped forward again. "The evidence we've collected suggests that Mr. Logan Kessler had both motive and access. As the sole inheritor under the false will, he stood to gain everything." Logan turned, pointing wildly. "This is a setup. They're trying to destroy my family." Naomi cut him off. "You already did." The words hit harder than anything shouted. They were soaked in truth. "You killed your own father," she said, voice steady, almost too calm. "And when my mother tried to protect his legacy, you erased her, erased me." Logan laughed bitterly. "You think this changes anything? The money's gone. The estate's mine. You'll never get it." Isaiah raised an eyebrow. "Actually, under California Penal Code, any inheritance gained through criminal activity can be fully revoked. If charges proceed, the entire estate reverts to the rightful heirs under the last valid will. And we have that will." Helena staggered back. "Oh my God." She looked at Logan like she didn't recognize the man she had married. Maybe she never did. But Naomi? Naomi recognized him clearly. "I didn't come back to beg," she said. "I came to correct the record." Behind her, the projector flicked to a second slide. A recording. And then Logan's voice filled the air. "I don't care what Julian wrote." She and her mother? Their history. That will is going to disappear, or so help me, you will. You could hear him breathing in the audio. Fast. Cornered. The crowd turned. Some guests began recording on their phones now, not for gossip, but for evidence. Naomi turned slowly, letting the weight of her silence settle. "You tried to burn the truth," she said, "but ashes still tell stories." The recording ended. For a full 10 seconds, the only sound in the ballroom was the quiet hum of electricity behind the projector. Even the music had stopped. Logan's voice, captured so clearly, threatening, hateful, deliberate, hung in the air like smoke after a controlled explosion. And Naomi? She stood in the center of it all, still. Not triumphant. Just finished. Helena finally found her voice. "You threatened a witness," she whispered. "You lied about your father, about the will, about everything." Logan didn't answer. His face had gone pale, not with shame, but with calculation. Like a man trying to find the trapdoor before the ground collapsed entirely. But there wasn't one. Naomi turned slowly toward the crowd. "You all thought this was just another gala, another night of champagne and charity photos. You didn't even blink when you saw me walk in alone." Her voice was low, steady, the kind of calm that made people nervous. "You saw a black woman in a ball gown and assumed the dress was borrowed, the confidence fake, the invitation a mistake. You laughed before I even spoke, and now you're all quiet. Why?" A few heads lowered. Others turned away. Naomi wasn't looking for apologies. She was peeling away their comfort, layer by layer. "You didn't know who I was. And still, you thought you knew everything." Evelyn Stroud, red-faced, spoke for the first time. "We didn't know you were related." "That's the point," Naomi cut in, not raising her voice but slicing through hers. "You didn't think someone like me could be," Logan finally snapped. "You think this changes anything? You'll never be one of us, even if the law sides with you." Naomi stepped toward him. "One of you?" Her laugh was soft, bitter, beautiful. "Why would I ever want that?" She looked around at the guests, the heirs of legacies built on silence, who had dined on privilege so long they mistook it for character. "My mother died in a one-bedroom apartment while you were renovating wine cellars. She died with grace, with music still in her hands, with your father's name still folded in her letters." She reached into her bag and pulled out a photograph. It showed Julian Kessler at a piano, arms around Elise Morrison, both young, both smiling, both in love. Helena took a breath that sounded more like a gasp. Logan, that's your father. Dr. Reed stepped forward again. Julian never stopped loving her. He wanted Naomi recognized, protected, but before the paperwork could be finalized, he got sick. Isaiah added, too conveniently sick. The detective who had entered during the last recording now stepped into full view. Mr. Logan Kessler, he said, holding out a folded warrant. You are under investigation for fraud, obstruction of justice, and potential homicide pending further analysis. We need you to come with us. Logan's voice cracked. You don't understand. My kids, my wife. This will destroy everything. Naomi didn't move. She just looked at him. Not with vengeance, but with something colder. Pity. You destroyed it the moment you chose power over blood, she said. He looked at Helena, but she was already walking away. No one reached for him. No one stopped the detective. No one even whispered anymore. As Logan was escorted past the chandeliers, the mirrors, the legacy, Naomi turned toward the piano. She sat down, pressed a single key. It rang out clear. Familiar. The sound of a memory returning home. The police car pulled away in silence. No sirens. No noise. Just flashing red and blue that reflected off the mansion's crystal windows, like truth finally pulsing through a place that had spent decades burying it. Inside, the ballroom had changed. Guests who had once posed for red carpet cameras now stood in clusters of shame, their voices low, their eyes uncertain. Some stared at Naomi as if seeing her for the first time. Others couldn't meet her gaze at all. Diana Fox stood near the staircase, already texting her editor. This'll go live in 12 minutes, she murmured. Front page. Nationwide. Heiress erased, the Kessler cover-up. Naomi said nothing. She walked past her mother's piano and headed toward the open balcony. The cool night air met her skin like a long-lost relative. Familiar, gentle, true. Below, beyond the estate gates, camera crews had begun to gather. A swarm of headlights, microphones, and flashing bulbs, all waiting to devour the scandal. Helena followed Naomi out onto the balcony, slow, hesitant. Her voice trembled. I didn't know. About Elise, about you. I know, Naomi replied, still facing the city lights. You were just part of the world that didn't need to ask. Helena swallowed hard. If I had known, maybe things would have been different. Naomi finally looked at her. They were never going to be different, she said. Not while the rules were written to keep people like me cleaning up the mess instead of having a seat at the table. Helena's eyes welled. You could have destroyed everything tonight. Our family, my children. I didn't come to destroy, Naomi replied. I came to correct. Inside, Evelyn Stroud approached Isaiah, her voice unsure. Will she keep the house? Isaiah didn't even look up. She already has. At the center of the room, the projector screen still glowed. Silent now. The final image frozen on Julian and Elise, young, happy, incomplete. Guests began to leave, one by one, quietly, as if exiting a funeral. Naomi stayed on the balcony, watching the lights below multiply. Reporters were shouting questions now. Miss Ellis, are you claiming the estate? Were you really erased from the will? Did Julian Kessler love your mother more than his legacy? She didn't respond. She didn't need to. Inside, Diana handed her a small envelope. This was Julian's letter, found in the will folder. I think he wanted you to have it. Naomi held it for a moment before opening it. To my daughter Naomi. If you're reading this, then somehow the truth survived. And so did you. I was a coward in life, but I tried to be brave with paper and ink. I failed you and your mother. If justice ever finds you, use it not to avenge me, but to protect the kind of people this world forgets. Love, Dad. She closed the letter slowly. The words didn't break her. They built her. She turned back toward the ballroom. The chandeliers, the marble, the glass. It all looked different now. Smaller. like a stage that had finally shown its last act. Margot, one of the housekeepers who had worked beside Naomi for years, approached from the shadows. "I always knew there was something different about you," she said softly. Naomi smiled for the first time that night. "Different doesn't mean less." Margot nodded. "What happens now?" Naomi looked around. At the piano. At the door Logan had been dragged through. At the portrait of Julian, still hanging. But now, beneath it, a space wide enough for one more frame. "Now," Naomi said, exhaling deeply. "Now we rebuild. And this time, we don't erase anyone." 6 months later, the Kessler estate looked nothing like it did that night. The chandeliers were still there, but the walls were bare, stripped of gold-framed arrogance. In their place hung photos of real people, scholarship recipients, single mothers turned entrepreneurs, former staff promoted to executive roles. At the center of the grand hallway, where Logan Kessler once toasted the elite, stood a tall, black-and-white portrait. Elise Morrison, seated at a piano. Julian Kessler behind her, eyes soft. And in her lap, a baby girl. Naomi. The legacy wasn't rewritten, it was finally made whole. Naomi Ellis now sat in what used to be Logan's office, the one lined with liquor and self-congratulation. The bookshelves had been cleared. In their place, community grant folders, education blueprints, and signed partnership agreements for domestic abuse recovery centers. Amanda, her new assistant, once a janitor in the same building, knocked gently on the glass door. "They're ready for you." "Forbes?" Naomi asked without standing. Amanda smiled. "And a few others. CNN, Vox, a university board. Oh. And a girl from South LA who wants to intern here. She said she saw your story online and thought maybe she could become like you." Naomi exhaled, a soft wave of gratitude in her chest. "Let her in too. The rest can wait." Later that afternoon, as she walked through the main lobby, the reporters surrounded her with microphones and questions. "Miss Ellis, how did you increase company profits by 42%? What's the secret to your leadership model? Was this all revenge?" Naomi stopped and smiled, the kind of smile born from pain survived, not privilege inherited. "Revenge," she said gently, "would have been taking what they had and using it to hurt them. Justice is using what they tried to bury, to build something no one can ignore." They fell quiet. Even the flashbulbs hesitated. "I didn't rise to destroy," she continued. "I rose to make space, for people like my mother, for people like Amanda, for the girl downstairs who thought her voice didn't matter." "And Logan Kessler?" one reporter asked. "Have you forgiven him?" Naomi didn't blink. "Forgiveness is personal, but accountability is public. He earned his sentence." Logan had been sentenced to 25 years without parole. The final charges: fraud, obstruction, attempted suppression of a legal will, and suspicion of murder. His assets were liquidated. Many of them used to fund the very initiatives he once mocked. Helena had moved out of state with her children. Before she left, she met Naomi in person. "You could have torn us apart," she said, tears in her eyes. "But you didn't. You protected the truth, and my kids will grow up knowing it." Naomi had replied only with a nod. Some moments didn't need words, only clarity. That night, Naomi returned home, not to the one-bedroom apartment she once cleaned her wounds in, but to a modest house filled with music, peace, and 2 adopted daughters she now called her own. One of them, Zara, tugged on her sleeve. "Mom, someone at school said you used to be a maid." Naomi kneeled, smiling gently. "I was, and proud of it." "Why?" "Because sometimes, when you're cleaning someone else's mess, you learn exactly how the world is built, and how to build it better." She kissed her daughter's forehead and stood. Inside, the piano waited. The same one from the mansion, now restored and placed under a skylight. Naomi sat down, played a single note, then another. Not mourning, not regret. Just a quiet song rising from reclaimed silence. Naomi didn't need applause. She had rebuilt something far greater than legacy. She had made justice feel permanent.